And what was the time frame of that period you were talking about? Was that recent or a number of years ago?
I started in 75. I finished my doctoral work in the mid-90s. I went back to practice actually in 2006 and worked as a practicing evaluator for a year.
And you're currently certified?
I am a certified vocational evaluator,
Excellent.
yes.
So in the work that you did, what were some of the primary tasks that you did with your clients as an evaluator?
Well, there would be certainly standardized testing for academics, for interest, some personality, some basic personality measures, a lot of trait and work sample testing. We had at one time a lot more funding for vocational evaluation, so I did a lot of situational and community-based assessment. When I worked in one rehab center and one hospital, we had locations throughout the campus, so to speak. When I was at the community college, we used a lot of the campus work as well. In more recent years, as we all know, that time has been really condensed, and so the opportunity to do really long-standing situational assessment in the community or community-based assessment is different. It's a different model.
And when you finished your assessments, how did you share the information with your referral sources or with your consumers?
Certainly with consumers, I always like to make sure they knew about progress and impact at every event, so that they understood we did planning with them, so there was an individual vocational plan, so they knew why certain events were being, either a test or some kind of an experience was being made available to them. In terms of my clients, oftentimes if it was a long evaluation, there would be at least a couple phone contacts. Primarily, I think the written report has usually been both the document of record and certainly how you are able to sort of finalize what you recommend. I would try also to have an opportunity for clients to understand that, and as my practice developed, I would even have them sign that they had an experience with it, that they understood what it said, and that they were able to sort of express in their own words what it meant to them.
What were some of the outcomes from your reports?
In terms of what I recommended for clients, or what? Well, I mean, there would be a wide range. I worked with everyone from college degree persons who might be taking a career shift and doing more academic work, so they'd be going back for reskilling. I did probably the greatest bulk of the work was for people to actually build a skill set. For some, that was some sort of apprenticeship. For others, it was actually on-the-job training. For others, it was more of a formal education program. And for some, it was immediate placement, depending upon the nature of their financial or personal situation, as well as what jobs were available.
What were some of the challenges that you found you ran into with the synthesizing and the reporting of that information and putting it into a concise package?
Well, I think that what was always the challenge was making sure that the readership read what was most important. And I think it's a lifelong debate whether you put the recommendations at the beginning or the end. Do you include all of the details about the instruments you used, sort of on the more psychological assessment nature, where you would describe the battery, you would describe the normative, or any kind of descriptive statistics that you were using. Those kinds of things are always important. I think as I progressed in my writing, I got to the point where I was much more condensed in what I recommended, and then I used the supplemental or appendices kind of model to make sure I attached all of the data so that judgments were shown to not just be more subjective, but they had more data with them. So I think that the hardest thing is making sure that you have captured, in my mind, interest and motivation are probably the two most powerful drivers. So if someone doesn't have aptitude and they're so determined, I have been shown wrong on enough occasions to say it's worth some more exploration. However, I also think it's important, given the nature of who we serve, that they look at work from a more immediate or intermediate goal, as opposed to all of us having the luxury of more long-term planning. I don't think the financing or even the job market allows us to do too much of that right now.
Did you have a follow-up system in place so you knew what happened with your reports over periods of time after?
We used to try to do 30, 60-day follow-ups, especially because if your referral base was somewhat standard, you would be in contact with many times the same counselor or referring source, and you could check again on those persons and their progress. I think the hardest thing would be to try to find people maybe 90 to maybe, so that would be 3 months to 6 months out, partly because we know the VR system, and many of my clients were VR connected, has its own sort of pacing. So sometimes if you set a 30 or 60, the person may still just be moving through some of the statuses within the system. My dissertation, however, was on supported employment, and so I had the luxury, because it was a state-funded project, to go back and look at people from anywhere from 12 to 60 months post-placement in supported employment. So we were able to evaluate from a multiple number of sources, the employer, the family member, the provider, and the client, him or herself, how effective that model had been for them.
Do you believe vocational evaluation is an important service?
I think it's a critical service, and over the years of funding for career education, we've seen the model sort of be squeezed and expanded and squeezed, where I sense the value has always been there. It's been a luxury in some economies, if you will. I think every time I hear a person say to me, I wish I had had this for myself, it validates again that this is a service that helps any of us to rethink who we are in today's workplace. I mentioned to a colleague of mine just the other day, I'd like to sit with her and do an evaluation process so that she could give me another perspective on what's ahead for me.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.